Hi guys, it's Alexander Heiberg here at the Monsanto track in Lisbon, my home track. Today I'm gonna show you something quite interesting, something that a lot of you have requested. I'm gonna show you a run with my car using the POV view on top of my head, and then I'm gonna show you my throttle and brake inputs, a close-up of the trigger. So I'm gonna have two cameras set up for this one run, and hopefully you'll find that interesting to see my trigger inputs when I'm driving. Yeah, let's see how it works out. Enjoy the video.
Fifteen, 428. 15, 541. 15, 610. 15, 477. 15, 627. 15, 731. 15, 585. 15, 709. 15, 750.
So I was thinking about how we could do this segment of the video in a way where you can understand better the inputs that I do with a trigger and the reason behind. So at first I was thinking to do a commentary track to the video that you just saw, and I think it would be just too time consuming, and it will be too many small inputs to describe and to talk about, because there's just so many small inputs that you do over the course of a lap, and not to mention over the course of a run, or those 9 laps that you just saw. So instead of going through the whole run again, I'm gonna explain how I apply the throttle and the brake for just one single lap, and why I do it in that way. So I hope that's gonna work out, and we can get some more insight in what you just saw. Otherwise you just saw inputs and you don't really know the thought behind them. I mean, sometimes I don't know the thought behind the inputs that I do. I mean, I simply do them by feeling, by intuition, so to speak. And I will try to get more technical so that you can understand better. And also important to know is the background about the video. I shot this video on a track day where I was alone at the track. So the track was not perfectly clean. The grip was, for that reason, not super high. It was actually on the low side. So the lap times in the video are about half a second slower than my best laps at a track that I've done when the grip was up, when the track was more clean. So you can watch the car in the video. When I get on the throttle coming out of turns, it gets a little squirrely, so I have to be careful with the throttle, not to punch it too hard, or the rear will step out. So that's something you can really notice in the video because the grip's kind of low. Obviously on higher grip you can apply more throttle, and you can punch it harder out of corners without having to worry about wheel spin. But of course it depends on the balance of your car and those sort of things. Of course we're very spoiled today with the speed controllers that we have. They're really developed, they're really good, and they're good for the reason that they have driving aids, so to speak, which really makes it easier for you to drive a modified car. And the driving aids, they're called softening in the hobby wing speedos. They're called different things in other speedos, but most modern speedos have this function, which is called softening. It basically limits the amount of wheel spin when you apply the throttle. So you can set the softening values to really limit the wheel spin a lot, and it allows you to be a lot more aggressive with the throttle, even on low grip conditions. But I talk about this in my hobby wing ESC setting video, which is also available on my social media channels. But just because you have softening and it allows you to be more aggressive doesn't mean that you have to be super aggressive. I mean, the goal is always, in modified racing at least, to try to squeeze the trigger on the throttle, not punch it immediately, because there's no reason for that. If you can squeeze it, you'll still reach the same speed at the same rate as if you would punch it, but you can limit wheel spin, you can limit heat buildup in the tires and in the ESC. So smooth is fast. Always remember that smooth is fast. When the grip allows you to be aggressive, when the car allows you to be aggressive, yes, you can be, but the goal is always to be smooth. That's why modified touring car is a very good class to use as practice for basically all sorts of RC, because it really requires you to be smooth with the throttle. Because of the limit of the tires, the car is basically always overpowered. You always have more power than you can use. And you always have wheel spin because of the rubber tires don't provide the grip that a car actually could achieve if it had better tires. So when you drive modern touring car today in a modified class, throttle and brake inputs are as important, if not more important, than the steering inputs, for the reason that you have a solid axle in the front of the car, and you can use the throttle to basically steer the car, at least coming out of the turns. You can also use the throttle and the brake to set the car up for the corner, to allow it to transfer the weight, which I will go into detail in the next segment of the video. But basically the throttle and brake is extremely important in modified touring car, and yeah, you will understand why when I explain this. And another thing to keep in mind is the brakes. The main thing to remember is that your brakes should always be set up to not lock up the wheels, so you should always try to use as little brake as you possibly can. Too much brake is usually a problem, because you lock up the wheels, and you overheat the tires, and probably you might even strip your spur gear or such if you use too much brakes. And the brakes should be set up for your driving style so that it allows you to be comfortable with the brake. And I talk about this in my hobby wing ESC setting video, where you can set up the brakes to accommodate for your specific driving style. Let's move on to the next segment of the video, where I will describe a lap in detail, each section of the lap, and the inputs that I do. So let's move on. Okay, so let's start. The car is at the transponder line right now. It's about to start its first lap, or we're about to start the first lap. From here and onwards, full throttle. So you can see, full throttle, and I was just about to tap the brakes. Just there. There I tapped the brakes. Tap the brakes one time. When I'm here, I tap the brakes for the second time. So I actually tap the brakes here, lift, tap the brakes again. And why do I tap the brakes in 2 steps instead of just 1 brake stroke? When you tap the brakes here, the car will slow down. But if you then lift the brake shortly, you're allowing the car to turn by using the steering wheel. So basically it's like a manual ABS function. So you brake here, let go of the brake for an instant, turn, and brake again. That way, you're basically doing what an ABS would do. You're allowing the tires to have grip to turn before you brake again in the middle of the corner. Then, when I get past the apex, here I start applying the throttle. As we spoke about earlier, try to squeeze the throttle so that the car doesn't go too far off the apex on exit or doesn't lose the rear, because the grip's kind of low even though I'm on the apex. The apex is actually here is on the paint or just outside of the paint. There's more grip on the paint in this particular corner, so you need to be cautious to not turn too much on the paint or the car will actually turn in too hard or lose the rear. So let's see. There I apply the throttle from here till here, full throttle. Here I start to think about braking. You can see on the video. There I already applied the brake around here, and apex is close to the rubber barrier here, the curb basically, and on the paint, because there's more grip on the paint, so it will help you to accelerate and to launch the car past the corner. Here I'm on the brake, as you can see. I braked here, I let go a little bit, and I braked again for the sort of ABS technique, which I applied over here as well. Here, you actually, ideally, you should start applying the throttle already when you're at the apex, because when you're at the apex here, you're already with the wheels pointing to the right that you're about to exit the corner. So the earlier you're allowed to get on the throttle, the more the throttle will help the car to turn and to rotate and to send the car towards the next part of the track. So watch. There it actually got a little bit squirrely because I was too hard on the throttle. We can just go back a little bit. Let's watch it again. There you could see the car was getting a bit loose because I was too hard on the throttle coming off the corner. There was not enough grip for the throttle amount that I applied. But still, the car managed to accelerate in a fairly straight line towards the next section. Here, obviously, it's full throttle because it's quite a big sweeper that turns then towards right-hand corner. There's paint here, a painted curb, which ideally you should be on the paint, and then you're allowed to have a straighter line coming into the hairpin. So here, full throttle, here, lift a little bit and start thinking about braking over here. There you can see I'm already starting to brake. You don't have to brake super hard here because actually it's quite a fast 180. It's not a super tight corner. It's a 180-degree corner, but it's not super tight. So you can actually just brake a little bit, allow the car to carry speed around because you don't want too much of a weight transfer to the front wheels because it will make the car loose. Just brake once or brake twice, but don't brake super hard, and try to hit the apex, which is the paint again, and then allow the car to drift towards the outside of the track. Use the throttle to steer the car from here to here, and once we get here we can start thinking about applying full throttle. See here, I went a little bit towards the outside, then towards the inside. There's obviously left-hand corner here with painted curbs, but you need to be careful because there's very big rubber curbs on the inside, so you cannot go too far in. The thing with this track is that you need to consider the bumps on the main straight. So in this section here, there's bumps on the outside, on the right side of the track, so you need to keep the car towards the left side. That's why I always drive on the left side of the painted line here, on the inside. That makes it even more important to be far out to the right here, so you can make a sharp left turn and keep the inside line. But here, obviously, you need to wait till the car is at least in the middle of the corner or somewhat straight before you start to apply full throttle. Because if you do it too early, the car will just push wide and go to the outside of the track and maybe even hit the wall. So I always apply the throttle cautiously here. I'm probably halfway throttle here and probably full somewhere at this point. You could see that when I came to this part here, I applied full throttle and continued down the straight on the left side. This is the short layout of the track. So the straight is not super long. So here you need to be quite early on the brakes. You can see close up of the trigger that I'm actually already in neutral and I'm about to start braking. I think I've already started to brake a little bit because there's not a lot of grip and you need to make sure that you're slowing down in time to hit the apex of the corner. So there I'm already braking. I braked a little bit, I lifted and braked again. So here basically you want to be on the paint again and don't turn too much because you want to sort of straight line this corner towards this corner and try to make it the shortest possible way. You want to go as short as possible from here to here to here to here and try to always be on the paint because it will help to launch the car towards the next corner. So here obviously is a hard braking point at the end of the straight. Turn, try to straight line it towards here. I brake in this corner and also in the next corner, and I'm going to explain why. You see there, I braked a little bit, accelerated straight from here to here, and you can see here in this corner I brake again. So I was using the brakes both here and here. And why did I do that? The main purpose of braking in these two corners is not necessarily to slow down the car. The main purpose is to brake, to shift weight from the rear wheels to the front wheels, which will help the car to turn in these corners. So you don't want the car to slow down too much, you don't want the car to stop, but you do want some weight on the front wheels in this part of this corner and in this part of this corner, because it will help the front wheels to turn the car towards the next part. Okay, so here I was braking here, the weight shifted to the front wheels here, and I started to accelerate here. This section here is actually a bit slippery, so you need to be careful not to apply too much throttle or the car can get loose, but still try to be on the paint because this is the shortest way, and that way you can have a better straight line towards the chicane over here. And yeah, that's it. That's one lap. Let's go back a little bit. Here I'm on the paint, so close to the curb here, accelerating. I would say I'm full throttle from around this part here, because here the car is still turning, the front wheels may still be turning a little bit. You don't want to hit the throttle before the car is straight or it may get loose, so try to keep it pointed in this direction before you apply full throttle, and again try to squeeze it, don't punch it too hard or the car can get loose. And then it's just a straight acceleration from here past this really wide chicane, and we've completed one lap. So I hope that this was informative and detailed enough. And if you have any questions, comment or let me know. I'll gladly explain in better detail if needed. And as always, thank you for watching.